8 months after closing, a family in the Ozarks got a letter ordering them to tear down the dock they bought the house for. No warning, no violation notice before closing, just a state agency telling them the pier their whole purchase was built around had never been legal in the first place. To be clear before we start, none of these 5 situations are automatic deal breakers. People successfully buy landlocked lots, mobile homes, and lakefront piers every year. What hurts people isn't the situation itself, it's buying blind. So this isn't a list of homes to avoid, it's a list of homes you check before you fall in love with them. That's the thing about the 5 homes I'm about to walk you through. Every one of them sails through a standard inspection without a single red flag. The roof's fine, the foundation's fine, the wiring's fine, and every one of them can still cost you years of stress and thousands of dollars, because the problem was never in the walls, it was sitting in the public record the whole time, in a place a home inspector was never hired to look. I spend my time going through county deed records, plat maps, permit archives, and HOA financial filings looking for exactly this, the stuff that never shows up in a listing but ends up deciding whether a purchase goes smoothly or turns into a legal headache. None of it is hidden exactly. It's public. Anyone can request it. Most buyers just don't know it exists, so they never ask. Here's what to check and why it matters. Number 1. Landlocked property. A lot of buyers assume that if land is for sale, there's automatically a legal way to get to it. That's not true nearly as often as people think. A landlocked parcel is one completely surrounded by privately owned land, with nothing in the public record granting a right to cross that land to reach a public road. Owning the ground doesn't mean owning a path to it, and your neighbors have zero legal obligation to let you cross their property just because you'd like them to. There's a legal remedy called an easement by necessity, which can sometimes apply when a larger tract was subdivided in a way that accidentally cut off road access to one of the resulting lots. But getting that right recognized means filing a petition and proving your case in front of a judge, not a handshake deal with the neighbor. A couple in eastern Tennessee bought a wooded 5-acre lot for a retirement cabin, only to find out during permitting that the county had no recorded easement for the gravel road crossing their neighbor's land, a road their own seller had been driving on informally for over a decade without ever making it legal. The seller wasn't lying, technically. In their mind, the road had always been fine because it had been for them for years. That's exactly the trap. Informal permission from a neighbor who likes you is not the same thing as a recorded legal right that survives a sale, a new neighbor, or a disagreement 5 years down the line. Before you offer on any rural, wooded, or subdivided lot, pull the recorded plat and deed yourself and confirm in writing that legal access to a public road actually exists. Don't take "it's always been fine" as an answer. Number 2. A mobile home where the title was never canceled. When a mobile or manufactured home first goes onto land, the law treats it like a car, personal property with its own separate title, entirely apart from the ground underneath it. For a lender to treat it as real estate instead, the original title has to be formally canceled with the state, and the home has to be permanently affixed to a foundation in a way that meets specific legal requirements. Skip that step, and the home stays classified as personal property indefinitely, no matter how permanent it looks. A retired school teacher in rural Georgia found a manufactured home she loved, got it under contract, and only discovered during underwriting that the title from the 90s had never been canceled. No conventional lender would touch the deal. She walked away, having already paid for an appraisal, and lost weeks waiting on a loan that was never going to close. The frustrating part is how invisible this is from the curb. The home can be fully skirted, sitting on a permanent-looking foundation, connected to utilities, taxed as real property by the county for years, and still be legally a car with no wheels as far as a mortgage lender is concerned. It's not something you can eyeball. One question avoids the whole mess. Ask directly whether the title was canceled and the home legally converted to real property, and get documentation, not a verbal yes. Number 3. A home with a known, ongoing neighbor dispute. If a seller casually mentions tension with the neighbors over a fence line or a shared driveway, That conflict doesn't vanish when the deed changes hands. You inherit it exactly as it stands. If the dispute is rooted in an actual legal question, where a boundary sits, whether an easement exists, whether something encroaches, being friendly with the neighbors afterward doesn't fix anything. Only a survey, a legal agreement, or sometimes a courtroom can settle it. A young family in suburban Ohio bought a home where the seller mentioned some back and forth about a shared fence, assumed it was minor, and 18 months later were paying for a boundary survey and a mediated settlement after the neighbor claimed nearly 4 feet of what the family thought was their backyard. Ask directly whether any boundary, easement, or encroachment dispute currently exists, or has existed recently, and get the answer in writing as part of your disclosures. Quick one, because this channel exists exactly for this. If catching this stuff before it costs real money is useful to you, that's the whole point of what I post here every week. Number 4. A lakefront home with an unpermitted pier. Waterfront property carries a premium largely because of the access it provides, and a dock is usually central to that value. Most people don't realize most piers require a permit from a state agency, a local water authority, or the utility managing the lake, and that permit belongs to the structure, not the land. It isn't automatically inherited just because you bought the property beneath it. That's exactly what happened to the family in the Ozarks from the top of this video. Their dock had been built decades earlier without a permit, no records existed to grandfather it in, and they lost the structure along with roughly $30,000 in value that had been priced into the sale. Before closing on any waterfront property with an existing pier, request documentation proving it was properly permitted. If the seller can't produce it, that's not a minor formality. Treat it as a real problem. Number 5. A condo or townhouse with a defunct owners association. Buying into an HOA means buying into shared ownership of everything the association is responsible for. The roof, the parking areas, sometimes the exterior walls, all funded through monthly dues. When the reserve account behind that runs dry, there's exactly one place the money for a major repair comes from: a special assessment. A one-time bill sent to every owner, sometimes for thousands of dollars, often with almost no warning. A buyer in a coastal Florida condo building saw monthly dues of $380 and assumed that meant the building was financially healthy. 4 months after closing, a special assessment notice for $14,000 arrived because the roof needed emergency replacement and the reserve fund covered barely a fraction of the cost. High dues and a healthy reserve are two completely different things. An association can charge premium dues for years and still be sitting on almost nothing if the board has been quietly underfunding reserves to keep monthly numbers looking attractive to buyers. That's not rare. It's common enough that it has a name in the industry: reserve underfunding, and it's one of the first things a good real estate attorney will tell you to check before you sign anything on a condo. Before offering on any condo or townhouse, request the association's most recent financial statements and reserve study directly, and check how much money is actually sitting in reserves relative to the age of the building's major systems. If the association won't produce a reserve study, or the one they hand you is more than a couple of years old, treat that silence as an answer in itself. Land with no legally recorded way to reach it. A mobile home whose title was never canceled. A property already tangled in a dispute with the people next door. A lakefront pier that was never permitted. A condo association with a reserve fund too thin for what's coming. Every one of these was sitting in the public record before a single listing photo was ever taken. Quick disclaimer, because it matters here more than almost anywhere else, none of this is legal or financial advice, and I'm not an attorney or a licensed professional. This is a map of what to check and who to bring it to: a real estate attorney, a title company, a licensed surveyor, before you sign anything. I go through public records so you know exactly what questions to ask and exactly which document proves the answer. Knowing what to watch for only solves half of this. The other half is knowing precisely which documents to request and in what order before you ever put in an offer.